Hello, in this video we're going to be talking about properly setting up your SVG in Illustrator. So in Illustrator, when you set it up, you're just going to go File, New, pick a, it doesn't really matter as much which size of document you pick. I usually go to a web one, start with something like a 1366, or really it doesn't matter because it is vector and you're going to be changing the size of it anyway. So I would go create. Then I would bring in some sort of reference picture, unless you're really good at freehand drawing, which then feel free to do. But I would usually go File, Place, and then grab a JPEG or something that I'm going to use as a reference. So I'm going to drag that and drop it. I also usually recommend locking that down because then you won't be moving it by accident. So I select it with my selection tool and go Object Lock Selection or Command 2. Then I would use my Illustrator tools to create my vectorized version of that. So either probably the curvature tool or the regular pen tool, depending on your comfort with those tools. And then what I want to do is trace around whatever objects that I have, making sure that when I do so, that I am actually closing the paths. That could be one of the problems why we were getting groups instead of paths in class. So just when you're coming over the first control point where you started, there's a little circle there beside the pen tool. See how it goes from a plus, nothing, a plus, and a circle. So the circle means you're closing the path. So as long as when you click you've got a closed path, that should be fine for closing the paths. So when you're done, I guess one other thing there is when you're done, you should go back under Object Unlock All and actually delete your reference picture out of the SVG entirely. I'm just going to skip over to a finished version here. So I've got all my bones. A really important thing to do is before you export it is to go over to the Layers panel, label your layers. This layer will become the name of the SVG. So I put that on there. And then actually name each of the paths within the layer. So each object will have a path and an ID name. So right now when I export this, I will have a path named fibula, a path named tibia, etc. I also will have you export it by going File, Export, and then Export for Screens. Perhaps that's another reason. I can't recreate the problem we had in class with the group, so I'm trying to rule out different ways of doing it. So I've had success with this way. So export from screens, make sure that you choose SVG as your format, and then choose where you want to save it to. And then just say export artboards. So then it will export that artboard. If I were to open it up in Illustrator, let's just do that. So once I've opened it up in Illustrator, I can see the SVG does have the ID that I gave the layer, that there is this style block. Again, feel free to hit enter or change this around for your readability if you want. I just have one class here called class 1, and that's because all of my objects in here are colored the same. If I had colored one element differently, I would have more than one class in here. So if when you open your SVG you see, I've got like 10 classes, that's probably because you have 10 different looks to the different objects within your SVG. This here is the path for my femur, and I can see it gets that ID. Again, that's from the ID here in the layers, so that translates over. And an important thing to do before you export it. So I can see now I've got all these different paths with IDs. In the event that you did get groups, what we did, so a group looks like this. It's a G tag, and it wraps around certain objects to make them a group. If you find that your ID is on a group, what you can try to do is move it onto the specific path itself, so that when you roll over it, the whole object will highlight. Okay, so that's it for this video. You can check back in Canvas and you'll find other videos for the coding bits. Okay, thanks.